Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In the last video, we have seen how the Node.js works and we created a simple HTTP server using the HTTP module of Node.js. And in this video, we are going to create a whole CRUD REST API with the all CRUD functionalities, and the framework we are going to use is Express. So Express is a web framework created for backend development using Node.js. And how the API is going to work, let me have a quick demonstration. And if we hit on the API slash blogs with a get request, then it will send all the blogs from the backend server. And now if we need only one blog, we can pass the ID in the request in the params. So we need the id 2, so I can pass here id value 2. And if I click on send, then it will send only one block by id. Now if we need to add one block, then we have the api slash blog slash add, and in the body we need to send the title and body of the post, and the request would be post. If I send the request, you can see that new it is replying that new post added, and the status code is 201. Now how to check if the post is added or not? Now if you go back to the api slash blog server, which is returning the whole all the blogs, then if I send the get request, then here you can see that we have now 3 posts in our blog. Now another one is to update some blog, and the this time the request would be a put. And now which blog do we want to update, and the id we need to pass in the query params, and the body will be updated for id 1. You can see that now the blog body is this is blog 1, and we will change it to this is post 1 updated. Now if we click on send request, here it is sending http response 204, means you can see that server successfully processed the request but not returning any content. If we go back to the get api, and you can see that the post body is updated. So that one for updating, and now we want to delete some post. Now let me go with id 1. We want to delete the first post in our blog. Now this time the http request will be of delete type. We click send, then you can see that the response is coming from backend that blogs with id 1 is deleted. Now how to verify? Go back to the get server and click send. You can see that id 1 is not present here, only id 2 and 3 is showing here. So we are going to create this APIs from scratch, and we are going to use the Express framework to do that. So let's create a folder quickly so that we can have our projects there. So open up terminal wherever you want to store your project. So I'm in Windows, so let me open Microsoft CMD, and let me make the font bigger so that it is clearly visible. Yeah, now here I want to create a folder where, let me name something Express, say API, and go inside of this directory. Now here is nothing. If I see what is inside of this directory, so here is nothing. And to follow this tutorial, I am assuming that you have Node installed in your system, and if you don't have, then you can just Google it, Node.js, and you can download it from the official website. I can put the link in the description of this video. And go with the LTS version, that is the long-term support, and this is stable one. So let's go back to the command line, and here with while installing the node, it will also install npm, which is node package manager. Here we just have to do npm init, means we are initializing an empty npm directory inside of this folder. So if we hit enter, then it is asking for some basic requirements, that what it will be the package name. Just click enter, version, description if you want to put something, the entry point, the main file of our project, which by default is set to index.js, but if you want to rename it, you can do. Test we are not using for this project. Git repository, if you want to add something, then you can do. Keywords, you can have nodejs-express, whatever you want. Then author, you please enter your name here, and then license I will go with ISC. Now it is asking for confirmation. I just type yes and hit enter. Now if we open code, Visual Studio Code inside of this directory, here we can see that a file is created named package.json, and here we have all the information that were asked in the command line. Now you just have to do, now open the terminal. You can use this command line, Windows CMD, or you can go to the Visual Studio Code here and create one terminal by going to new terminal. Let me make this fonts bigger. Yeah, now it is clearly visible, right? Yeah, now in the package.json file you can see that all the description that were asked in the command line. Now do one thing, just click on the terminal here and click new terminal, so that we can have the command line inside of our text editor. Now here I want to do is npm install, and it will install all the required dependencies to run a node server, a node project from our PC. Now it is created a package.log.json. This is for verifying the packages that are going to be installed in this for this project. Now the framework we are going to use is Express, so we need to install that. So type npm install Express. And why using Express is going to help us creating the HTTP servers more easily. We don't need to use if you want to use the HTTP module which we used in the last video, you can do, but that is more time consuming and pretty boring stuff. And after installing Express, you can see that here one object is created called dependencies, and inside of which we have Express and with this along with this version. So this is specifying that Express version 4.1.17.1 is installed, and this Express is installed in this inside of this node modules directory. Now, so we have Expressed in our project. Now we need to create this index.js file where the main code of our project will be. So create new file, name it index.js, and here we are. The first thing is we need to import the Express to use it in our project. So this is how we do the import stuffs in JavaScript. Const Express equal to require Express, and the IntelliSense from VS Code is suggesting something. And the next stuff is we need to instantiate the Express inside of a variable, let's say app, and we'll call the Express initiator or the constructor function. Now we have our Express app ready. Now this app has some methods. If you click dot, then you can see that there are a lot of suggestions that is coming from VS Code. And for the first one I want to explain is get. So this is for handling all the get requests that our server is going to get. So here it took two arguments. One is the path which means the path means the URL that is going to be hit from the server, from the browser or postman, whatever you use, the client side. Then and the next thing is it will take a callback function. Callback means when executing this function, this call, after executing the function, this callback function will be executed by Express. We are not calling it. It will be executed by Express itself whenever required. Now it takes two arguments. One is request and another one is response. And we will use a simple arrow function syntax, which is named in ES6, I think. So it is a simple function. It is a syntax of function in JavaScript, and yeah, this is a callback function. Now what we are interested in this for this function, whenever someone hits the root of the URL, root of the server, then we want to send a response. This race is having some functions, so you can see that it is having a send function. So the send function, we can say that it works and save it. So we have our one API ready, and it is pretty much easier than using the HTTP module what we used in the last video. And now which port the server is going to use, for that we have one more method called listen. Now inside of this function we can specify the port we want to listen on, and then one more callback function which will be executed if the app listening successfully. So we can simply have a console log here that server is started. Yeah, save it. Now we have our own one routes ready. Now how to test? Open up the terminal again and node, run the file by node and the file name which is index.js, and here you can see that output we are getting server is started. Now let's go back to the browser, and it will come on localhost. The port was 3000. So if we hit enter, you can see that we are getting the response from our Express server. It works. So our one API is ready for the root. Now the CRUD operation comes, which means create, read, update and delete. So let's go for that. The next API, now let me close this terminal. Now the next API we are going to have is to get all the posts from our blog, and for the path, and it will also be a get request, and the path will be API/blogs. Then the callback function, which will take two argument, request and response, which goes to another callback function. And this time we want to send some blogs, but from where is the data? So first of all we need to create some data, and for this project we are not going with the MongoDB and database stuffs, because for this video I want to keep it on the REST API parts only. We just need to create the APIs. So we can simply have a JavaScript array here consisting of say id 1, and then we can have a title here for the blog and say title 1. Let me quickly create some APIs, and let me fast forward this video and Yeah, so I have created a a JSON array called data, and inside of which we have two JSON objects. One is this one, and another one is ID2, and this is this one. And these two are our blog post, and we can say this is our database, not database, just a JSON array. Now we need to send that in when someone, the client, is calling the API slash blogs endpoint. Now how we can do that? In the same way we did in the route, we handle the route, right? Whatever you call it. So we can have the race.send, and then we can pass whatever we need to send, data, save. But go back to terminal, the server is started. If we have, now go back to browser, the route was localhost 3000 slash API slash blogs, but it is showing that cannot get API slash blogs. Why? Because we need to restart the server. But this is a boring stuff, and in Node we can automate it using a package called Nodemon. So but this is not a dependency that will be required in production environment, so we will install for development purpose only. So type npm install nodemon and prefix it with save dash dev, so it will install it as a developer dependency. So if you go back to package.json, after the installation is finished, you can see that there one more JavaScript JSON object will be created called dev dependencies, and here you can see dev dependencies, which is showing Nodemon version 2.0.7. and in the package.json we can have one scripts. Let me remove the test, we are not using it, and say dev for development, and we will use Nodemon to run the index.js file. Let me save it, and in the terminal, go back to terminal, type npm run dev, and in the output you can see that server is started using the Nodemon. Now if we change something and press Ctrl S, the server will be restarted automatically using the Nodemon. Yeah, now let's go back to browser, hit the same API slash blogs, and you can see that we are getting the JavaScript array, and yeah, we are getting all the blogs. But one more convenient way of hitting the endpoint is using a software called Postman, and you can have it if you Google it Postman, then this is the link for Postman. This is used for collaboration platform for API development, means you can do whatever you want with the APIs, test, collaborate with other developers and everything. So I'll give the link in the description so that you can also check it out. So I already have it installed, so you can see I demonstrated, and now I already have it installed. So let me open Postman, and here the interface is someone look like this, and if you click on this plus icon, it will give you a dashboard to enter your URL and do all stuffs, whatever. Now the URL for our project was, we used that in our browser, so we can just copy paste it from here, Control C, go back to Postman, paste it here, and you can change the HTTP request type from here, get, post, put, whatever you want to. And for our API slash blogs, we have a get request to handle, so we'll send, and here you can see we are getting the JSON array as response, and it is in a pretty format so that you can quickly understand the JSON objects. Yeah, so this is how it works. And the status code response is 2200, which means everything going well till now. Now, one more convenient way of sending a JSON object is using a JSON function of this response method, response object, we can say. And this is nothing much, but we use it to send JSON data. And you can see here, whenever I am pressing Ctrl S, the server is restarting automatically. This is the beauty of Nodemon. Now the next thing to do is, whenever someone is asking for one post, say post with id 2, how to handle that? Let me show you. So we can have a method called app.get, then we can have /app /api/blogs, then something the id of the blog, and we can have the id by :id. This means we are passing some arguments through the url, some query string, some parameters from the users from the client side, and then we will have the request and response, like we the callback same as well, the same callback. And this is responsible for getting one id, but this route also works, but what I prefer is to use a query params, which means this is something that used in the url params. But the query params that I have shown, which is something like localhost, this is one example of parameters. The when we pass the only the blog id, but query params means after these links we will have one question mark and then the parameter name and then the value. This api is using the query params, so what I personally prefer is using this one, but sometimes you'll have to use both the params and the query params. Sometimes you will have to hide this one, this parameter from the whatever. So let me show you with the query params how it works. And the way we can test it in using the Python, using the Postman, is we can select the params, and here we in the key will type id and the value is say 2. We want the post with id 2, and the url will be automatically generated. Now at this moment if we send enter, then it will do nothing, it will send all the blogs. We will have to handle this situation when someone is asking for a post with id 2. Let's go back to VS Code, and here we'll have a conditional statement. Say if we have something in request dot query, this question mark thing we can access by using the query inside of this query variable or query object, whatever. This question mark thing we can access by request.query, and then the variable we are passing from the client side, that is request.id. So we can have it is for testing. You can have one console log that something is on query. Now if we save this, and let me open the terminal again and go back to Python, go back to Postman, send the request again, then you can see that something is on query. So we have something, this conditional block is being executed here. Now whenever someone is calling for the id post with id 2, then we need to send the only the post with id 2, not all the posts. So we can do the filtration somehow by this. So we want to filter the blog only, so say blog equal to, and we want to find the blogs from the blog from the blogs array, or the data. It is data here, so sorry, data. Then this data has a find method, find. Now how we want to find the blog. So this find, inside of this find we will have one more callback function which will be executed when we are searching for a blog. So this blog goes to whenever blog dot id, whenever blog dot id will be equal to request dot params request dot query dot id, means the blog it will go with it will traverse the whole array and search for the blog whenever the blog dot id is matching with request dot query dot id, whatever we are sending from the client, and store that blog inside of this blog variable. Now after that, what we want to do, we want to send the response res.json. We are sending JSON data, so you need to use the JSON method, JSON blog. Now if you save it and go back to Postman again, hit enter, and you can see that nothing is coming from the server. So why so? Because this request.query.id we need to parse to integer so that the Express can understand it. So for that, to parse the integer, we have a method called parseInt, and we need to use that to parse to make sure that Express understood the integer. Save that again, the server will be restarted. Go back to Postman, hit send, and you can see that we are getting the post with id 2. Now if you change the id to 1, then send the get request again, you can see that we are getting the id 1. Now what if we totally remove this function, or totally remove this params, and hit enter, hit send, then we are getting the all the post in the same API. This is the beauty of REST API. You can use only one API to handle multiple stuffs. Yeah, so our all the get APIs are ready. Now one bug is here, that after sending one response, we want to return from this function. We don't need to execute other things. So just pass the write the return statement before sending the response to the client. So here returns, here go with one more return, save that. So we have our get API ready. Now if someone wants to create one, now if someone wants to create a blog post, now what if someone wants to create a blog post, we need to handle that too. So for creating something on the database, we use the post method, and I think you know the different what are the different HTTP methods we use. But this post method is somehow different from the get. This get is used to call something from the to get something from the server, and this post is used to create something on the server. So and this works the same. We just have to give some path the endpoint that is going to be handled by this function, and we can have something called API/blog/new to create new blog, then a callback function which will be called to create function. It will take the same parameters, request and response. Now we need to create a new blog. So how we can do that? First of all, we need to get the client, whatever the client is sending. So we can do that by say for a blog, we need to get the title and body from the client. So say title and body. And how we can access it? We can access the user variables inside from the request object. So we can get it from request dot body, and this curly braces are if some variables are in this curly braces, this is something means object destructuring, means we are extracting this title and body from request.body object. So we are getting the title and body from the user. Now we need to create one blog and add the blog inside in this data array. So how we can do that? So this data array has a method called push, which means to insert some data. And push, what we want to push? We want to push an object, and the first value of the object will be id. Now how we can get the id? We are not getting that from the client, right? So we'll have to generate the id by our server. So how we can do that? And you can see that for our first post the id is 1, for the second one the id is 2. Now for simplicity we can do the id equals to data dot, this is having a property called length, which will return the length of the array, and we can just increase this by 1. So next time when someone creates a new block, then the id will be this length plus 1, means this time it will be 3, then 4, then and continue. And the title we are getting from the user, so we can mention it here. And if the variable name and the value is same, then we don't need to specify this like title colon title. We just have simply title here, and it will understand everything. And same for the body. So now we have created a blog object and pushed into the data value. Now the user is expecting some response from the server, if that it is created or not. So we can send the response to the user like send, and that post is created. Save it. Now how we want to test using the postman. So copy the URL, create new tab, paste it, and this time the request will be post. Now the data we can send from body, click on raw, and choose this type to JSON. Now what the parameters we are required? We required a title for the blog, and say this is post 3, and in the blog body we can say this is the body of post 3. Now if we click send, you can see we are getting an error that api.blogs cannot post. If we go back to client, yeah, I forgot to add the new endpoint, sorry. So the endpoint is api/blog/new. Now if we hit enter, we are getting an error that internal server error. Yeah, so type error. The error is type error, cannot structure property of title and request. So if the client is sending some JSON, Express by default cannot understand whatever the user is sending. For that we have a concept of middleware, which means before executing these functions, before handling these routes, we need to pass the request through one more function. And to handle the JSON request, we have a middleware in the Express itself, and that is Express.js. So now how we can specify that, we can tell the app variable to use this. We can have app.use, and inside of which we will pass express.json. So it means we are telling the app to use the express.json middleware to parse all the JSON requests from the client. Now save again, and the server is restarted using Nodemon. Go back to Postman, send the request again, and you can see that post is created. Now how to verify if the post is created? Go back to the get route again and send the get request. Here you can see that we have one new post created by the postman. It is showing id 3, title and body, whatever we sent. Now a best practice is, you can see that it is sending 200, which is okay, but when something is created on the server, we need to send a response like something is created. And for sending the response, this race object has a method called status, where we can set the status code for each response, and whenever something is created, for that the status code is 201. Save again, and if the server is restarted, our data will be lost. The third post we entered were not in the data array, were not physically added in the data array, it was logically, right? So now if we enter to the get request, we will get only two posts. Now let me go back to the post route again and send the response. Here you can see that post is created and the status code is 201. So this is some best practice we can follow. Go back to get route again, send the request, and you can see that we have our third post listed. Hooray, we now have two API endpoints that are working perfectly. For the get request, we are having two functionalities where we are getting all the blocks, and by filtering one, we need one block with ID 1, 2 or 3, whatever. And the second API is to create a new block. And now the create and read part is done. Now CRUD means CRUD. Now the update part is left. Now what if we want to update this post 3 to say this is the body? Say you can see that we have a spelling mistake here. This is the body, so we want to update it. Now we need to create one more API for that. So let's go back to VS Code and app. Now for update, we use the put HTTP method to handle all update related stuff. Now we can have the same API, same endpoint name, API/blogs, or say API/blog, and then the callback to handle the request, narrow function syntax. Yeah. Now to update a blog, first of all we need to get the blog. We need to filter out the blog from the array, right? And we know how to find a blog from the array, so we can just simply copy this line number 25, where we are using the find method to get a blog from the array. Now the next thing is, to update the blog. Now what we want to update, now for simplicity let's go with the body. We want to update the body only, so we will say blog dot body equal to, we will set to request dot body dot body. Now this first body is coming from the request object, and the next body is whatever we are sending in the body of a HTTP request. And after the updation is done, we want to send a response to the client, say return res dot send updated. Save. Go back to Postman again. Now how much server is restarted, so we have only two posts next we will create the post tree with the spelling mistake. Send, post is created, go back to get, and we are having 3 posts. Now we want to update the post number 3 and we want to modify this, we want to correct this spelling mistake. So create one more tab, copy the URL here, so I don't need to typing it again, and the API was API/blog. Yeah, and this time the request will be of type put. Go back to body, select raw and JSON, and in the JSON we will just simply copy the body from this post request and paste it here. But this time what we need to correct is the spelling. And if we send the request, you can see cannot set property of undefined, so something is not okay, and we are getting an internal server error. So how to fix it? We need the request.query.id in our params, right? So go back to params, select the key id, and we need to change the post with id 3. Send it once more, and you can see that response updated. Go back to get API to verify, so, and select and send. Now this time you can see that our post 3 is updated with the correct spelling. So now we have we did the U part of CRUD also, the updation. Now next, delete. Now if you want to delete the, say, post with id 2, how to handle that? So let's create the API. Now to delete, we have we use the delete method of Express to handle the delete request, and the path will be same, API/blog. So you just can copy and paste it, and the concept is same. We need to find the blog with ID passed by the user and just delete from the array. So simply we can copy this line and paste it here. Now what we need to delete, how we can delete this? We can delete this by from this array using a method called splice. The splice takes 2 arguments. One is the index of the object that we want to remove. Now the index we can get by, say, data dot index of method, and here we need to pass the blog whatever we are getting from this function, this find method. It means delete the data with index of this blog. Now the next parameter will be how many times we want to delete. So one time we want to delete. Now whenever the deletion is done, we want to send the response to the user that deleted. Save it again, go back to postman. This time we have 2 posts. Say we want to delete the post with id 2. Create one more tab, copy the URL, paste it here. Now we have we need to delete the id 2. Send, and oh sorry, I need to change it to delete http. We are deleting the data. So you can see that response is coming from the server is deleted. Now go back to get API again to verify, and you can see that now we are having only 1 blog post. So yeah, we did it well. We have now 4 APIs fully functional. Creating, create, read, update and delete all are working perfectly. So this is how we can use Express to create APIs. So much easy, right? Now things may happen, we cannot expect everything to be correct. What I mean to say that right now the post with id 2 is deleted. Now if someone comes here and send the request again, you are getting the deleted, but it is not right, it is already deleted. So we need to handle the situation, and you can see now we have the whole data deleted. So this is not something we want, right? So here comes the error handling. So we'll start off with the first one, the get request, where we are getting only one data. So as of now we don't have any data, right? So if we ask for post with id 1, we are not getting anything. So we should respond something that post with id 1 is not present. We need to send we need to tell the user or tell the client. So here we will simply for do what is if no blog, means it means if this blog is empty, then we don't want to execute this function mode. We will send a response to the client that this blog is not present, blog does not exist. And if the something is does not exist, then the status code, this is all we know, is 404. The blog does not exist. Save it again, go back to postman, and if we send, as of now we have all the data. So let me use the delete, and post with id 2 is deleted, post with id 1 also deleted. Now if go back to, now if you send the get request with id 1, then you can see that respond is blog does not exist and with a status code of 404. So this is how we handle the errors. So one is done for this get API. Now next thing is for say post. We need title and body for a request, right? Now in the post, if someone forgot to mention the body, just sending only the title, so let's send it, and you can see that post is created. But if we go back to get, you can see that a post is created with only the title, that is not having a body. So we don't want this type of uh, wrong data in our server, in our database. So we need to handle this too. So what we can do here is say if not title, or this pipe operator is used for or body. If title or body does not exist, then we can send a response to the user that res dot uh, send title and body are required, and the status code for this will be 400, which means bad request, that you are requesting something that is not possible. This is done. Go back to postman again, and we will go to the post API and send it with only the title. Then you can see that we are getting a response that title and body are required with a bad response of battery 400, which means best request. So this is how the post API error is handled. Now for put, now here I want to keep a homework for you so that you can also try. Keep one create one create one error handler for here. If the user is not passing the body from their side, then they will receive a 400 bad request saying that the body is required. So this is your task. I am commenting. So create this error handler. And one more bug is there. If the user don't send the request.query.id, means if the user don't send this id params in the request, where it was, yes, this, so we need to handle that too. So this is your task, to create these two error handlers. So I'll give the GitHub link of this API so that you can also clone it and create these error handlers. but for now it is okay. We created a fully functional CRUD API to create, read, update and delete, which is using the get, post, put and delete HTTP request listening on a port 3000. This is enough to get started with Express and Node. And the next thing is, we did a lot of things. We created some error handlers. We get to know about different status code from an API, from a web server. 201 for created, 400 for bad request, 404 for not found, these all things. So we learned a lot of things today, right? So if you really like and enjoyed this video and learned something, please consider sharing it with others so that they also can learn. And please click like, and it really helps and motivates to create new videos. And there are a lot of things that we didn't touch today, which is connecting with the database, and the main thing which is the node.js is made for, the asynchronous calls, and we will do that in the next video. So if you want to get a notification, then you can hit the subscribe button also. Yeah, I'll upload. I think I have uploaded the the code in the GitHub. I will give the give the link in the description, and here you will have all the things to run in your machine. And make sure you have cloned it in your machine and created this RED API to have a better concept in Express. So we'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.